I spent my first 25 years with Microsoft, and I learned so much, which triggered the idea that maybe we should give back. So we're going to have a podcast. My name is Mark Souza. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Microsoft Asia region. Now I'm going to be joined by many guests from different companies, and together we're going to share what we learned. We're going to talk about technology, challenges, and solutions. So please join us. Welcome to the next episode of Tech Talk. We're excited because today we're going to do something a little different. Normally we bring our friends, CTOs, CDOs, and CISOs from around Asia to talk to us about their challenges, their solutions. And we thought today maybe we would take some of those solutions and double click on the technology itself. So I'm excited to welcome Dave Nadgir. Welcome, Dave.
Great. It's fantastic to be here, Mark.
So Dave is a chief architect and has been working with generative AI for more than 2 years. So you're one of the more experienced people.
To an extent, I think, but then it's already over a year that we are live with ChatGPT. So quite exciting times.
Excellent. Well, for today, why don't we drill into optimization cost? I think that's on top of everybody's mind. So let's go forward, and I'm going to turn it over to you now to share some of your findings.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark. So if we need to bring in like 3 key levers in terms of how we are thinking about cost optimization, I would look at interactions where how applications interact with Gen AI models. I mean, simple things like request response times and so on and so forth becomes one key lever. The other key lever really is around AI grounding, right? Without which models cannot be contextually correct. So I think that's another major lever. And the third lever really is about the combination of models that customers are using intelligently to kind of really approach an end-to-end cost and performance optimization. So perhaps today what we can do is to dwell a little deeper into interactions, and there are few key areas that I think these models and applications, how they're interacting kind of comes into effect.
Excellent. Let's do that.
Yeah. So I think it really starts with prompts, right? And today, prompts are becoming like a key enterprise asset, and prompts, as many know, English is the new programming language, and so on and so forth. But when it kind of wants to double click on optimizing cost, I would go back to the 3C formula. The first C is really about being clear, and the second C is being concise, right? So let's take an example. Being clear and concise really optimizes the cost for prompts, because by the end of it, you would have really looked at tokens that are sent to these language models in a most effective way. It works for both requests as well as responses. For example, instead of asking very generic questions, question about, let's say, give me my performance, how have I done? You can add data like temporal data to it, saying that give me performance between now and my last quarter, which basically contextualizes LLMs to think very specifically and being able to be very effective in its response.
So if I'm a CFO or even in marketing, so a good example may be I'm looking at performance numbers. Instead of giving a nebulous, show me a pattern of that comes out of this data, where the model has to go through everything. If I say, look at February and look at sales data for a specific item, that type of precision is helping the model.
Absolutely. I think it reduces the entropy within the model decisions.
Okay, excellent.
And essentially giving better answers.
That makes sense.
And the third C is chaining, right? I think it's an architectural pattern that's emerging, where a bigger conceptual prompt is divided into smaller connected prompts and chained for responses. So chaining is another one, and perhaps this is an area that will really see a lot of research papers. And one of the things that I was quite excited about is this paper, which really talks about optimizing prompts using deeper gradient descent kind of techniques, which I think is something to look forward to.
Good. Well, let's now double click into that.
Excellent. So the other part is really about being able to understand and and monitor some of these prompts and completions in itself. And the reason why, if you kind of really apply a lens of cost optimization to it, it really helps to kind of understand what type of GPUs time that we are looking at, what type of request response are we coming, are there prompt attacks that are happening. So understanding these patterns, understanding the enterprise asset today, which is prompts, I think is another very important connotation that customers should look at when they begin to look at optimizing cost.
Yeah. Data itself, always, the awareness of data provokes action. So instead of just, I run a prompt that runs 2 minutes, I know that maybe I use this many tokens, or maybe I got some error, I couldn't allocate the GPUs I needed. So understanding that will help us build better prompts for a better performance and experience. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
That's fantastic. And understanding this interaction in itself gives better engagement, which is focused, which is repeatable. I think that's important.
All right, so we're going to monitor data.
Great. And the third one is also about bringing, not all interactions need to go to a language model for inferencing. So we kind of really look at this as another lever for cost optimization, primarily by bringing in a cache into the overall architecture. Sometimes it may feel as if that the cache is another architectural add-on that we're doing, but then if you really look at cost as an optimizing agent, bringing in cache reduces your LLM interactions by looking up the cache for both requests and responses. So that way we would have really optimized responses, just not hitting the model, but hitting a cache for faster user experience.
It reminds me of when we started with databases 30 years ago, the same type of thing. By understanding the details of performance, the monitoring, then by utilizing cache for better performance, kind of is doing it all over again.
Absolutely, Mark. There are many solutions today, like Redis, Pinecone, even our own AI search is readily used as cache today.
Good.
And the final lever, perhaps, here is about how we bring in batch processing for interactions. When we kind of really look at batch processing, where we're optimizing is, instead of calling a LLM inferencing server for each transactions, we are combining micro batches of data that goes into a generative model, which means that I would have reduced the number of calls that I would be making in generative AI for generative AI models by combining set of data, batching them, calling an LLM inference, and then summarizing, and using the summary of summaries to kind of really bring up the final output. So batching, in a way, when we attach to cost, what we're essentially saying here is batch in intelligent ways to minimize the number of invocations that you would do a generative model. I think that's the part that we're looking at here.
Wow, so some great tips for today around cost optimization. I love the 3 C's, clear and concise are critically important. Be data-driven, look at your data, understand it, that's great. And then of course, just good caching and batching, all things that help customers get better performance and lower their cost.
Absolutely, Mark. I think that's pretty much it.
So these are great tips for today. And we only talked about one thing. There's so many great things to talk about. Would you come back and next time and maybe talk a little bit more about grounding and multiple models?
Absolutely, Mark. It's always honor is mine.
Excellent. Thanks for coming. Thank you, all of you, for joining us for this episode. And we'll have more technical tips in the future episodes.